Hello and welcome back. Thanks for stopping by to hang out with Father Yam. When I created this channel, it was to make riding accessible to the masses, to spread information, create better understandings of motorcycle culture, and to share the tips and tricks I've learned along the way for both luxury and affordable riding. Part of affordable riding is being a smart shopper, which is why I'm such an advocate of checking out the used motorcycle section on Craigslist. Especially during the off-season, you can find some hella steals on there, but you can also find some less hot goods as well. Which is why I'm so excited about today's video. I may be a master Daytona slayer, and the Hentai Hornet may have bested me a time or two, but I've learned a thing or two in my time as a moto bro. And today I'm gonna impart that vast wisdom onto you. Today's video is also brought to you by Ridge Wallets, the best minimal wallets that money can buy and used by your Yam to hold all my precious cards that I use to fuel my degeneracy. I'll tell you guys more about them later in the video, but hit the link below and use the code Yammie for 10% off. So let's talk about the things you should definitely look for if you're browsing the market for a used motorcycle. Quick, subscribe or die, 0 to Turbo Busa, ring the bell, enter to win the Hentai Hornet or the FC07, Gooch Juice, mic drop, let's go. Our first item to look for, signs that it has been dropped. Something that can significantly impact the value as well as the overall condition and safety of a used motorcycle is whether or not it has been dropped. Now, to be clear, there are several levels of dropped. In fact, it might be better to create a sliding scale or one of those pain charts they use at the emergency room. Bikes are a lot like infant humans in that way. You don't really want to drop them, even at low speeds or from a short height. On the light end of the scale, you've got your kickstand parking lot drops, the stalled at a red light and later over drops, and those barely moving drops where your bike basically just falls to the side. The important thing to note with those kinds of drops is that there isn't any sliding, which means if someone tells you that a damaged bike was just laid over in the parking lot and it's got scratches and scuffs running along the gas tank and fairings, you should probably have that person explain to you exactly what they consider a parking lot layover. In my estimation, a parking lot layover is going to include maybe a few scuffs on the bar ends, some light scuffing on the front fork or swing arm, and maybe a few chips on the wheels. Any more than that and you're probably looking at something more substantial. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that anything with more than a few centralized scuffs or dings that has been on the receiving end of a drop that was closer to a 10 on the motorcycle drop scale. And if that's the case, you should seriously consider just how much money you're willing to sink into a project bike, because it's pretty likely that there's more than cosmetic damages lurking beneath the fairings. And if you tune in this Friday to our beginner bike giveaway series episode, you'll see just how quickly a project bike can spiral out of control in terms of cost. Our Hentai Hornet has some gremlins lurking underneath the surface, and boy, it's not looking so great. Keep in mind that those scuffs and drop dings are cosmetic damage now, but once they've occurred, the surface of the bike has been compromised, so those areas are going to be more prone to rusting, and unless you like riding around on a rust bucket, that means you're going to need to give those areas some extra tender, loving care. Aside from scuffs, scratches, and the like, you should also look for random new parts, like if one foot peg has been replaced, but the other is clearly old, mismatched blinkers, side mirrors, etc. If someone is trying to upgrade their bike, they aren't going to replace just one of those things. They're going to replace both pegs, both blinkers, both mirrors, etc. Someone who is trying to piece their bike together after being damaged is more than likely only going to replace what they absolutely have to in order for it to look good enough to sell on Craigslist. So watch out. There are a lot of really cool bikes hanging out on Craigslist, but there are also some scammy dudes, not Yammie Noob, who post misleading products. It's like when you see that chick from Instagram without all of her face paint, spackle, and filters. Where do we draw the line between fraud and good marketing? Number 2, check the chain. Much like Fleetwood Mac's seminal hit The Chain, the condition of a bike's chain was going to tell you everything you need to know about its owner. Check to see if it's rusted, poorly maintained, or looks recently lubricated and properly oiled. This is one of the fastest ways to judge the proxy for the life of the bike. For some reason, chains get overlooked on motorcycles sometimes. Those are not the bikes you want to take home from Craigslist if you can avoid it. Chain maintenance is simple, it's cheap, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. So if the current owner on the bike didn't take the time to maintain the chain, you have to ask yourself, what else have they let go unnoticed? It's like those people who have homes that look somewhat clean on the surface of their counters or coffee tables, and then you look at the edges of the corners of the walls and you see some of the human filth they left behind because they can't clean correctly. A properly maintained chain is going to reveal those secrets to you. Just like on a bicycle, the chain on a motorcycle is one of the major parts that will breathe life or destruction into the mechanics of motion. Think of your engine as the heart of the motorcycle. The chain is the major artery, and it's going to do everything everything to push everything where it needs to go for your body to do what it needs to do in order to survive. That was a weird sentence. If your heart is beating, but you don't have all the valves properly connected and operating, it's not going to take very long for the body to shut down and stop moving. Same with your chain. If the chain isn't in good shape, then the days of mobility are surely numbered for that bike, and we're not talking mobility scooter. On top of that, despite a chain job, which sounds like a weird sexual act, being a relatively simple thing to do, it can get kind of pricey if you're rolling on a budget. If the chain is rusted or worn down, that chain likely did damage to both the front and rear sprockets, meaning you're going to have to swap those out too when you swap the chain. This is going to run you about $250 plus the cost of tools if you don't have them, or the cost of labor to do it for you. Now, our third item is looking for signs of rust. Signs of rust are a clear indicator that a bike was kept outdoors. It's also a good indicator that the bike was damaged at some point in drop, and the exterior of the fairings or gas tank were compromised. It's pretty difficult to fix rust spots, and maintenance more difficult and intense for the remainder of the life of the bike. Rust is also indicative of a possible flood damage, salt damage, and a bike that just hasn't been properly cared for. Think about how many nice cars you see rolling around with rust or oxidation spots. Now think of all the junkers you've seen rolling around with rust. Need I say more? Number 4 on today's list is to check the tire wear. Most of the time, you're going to find that you're going to need new tires if you're buying a used motorcycle, so take a minute and check the wear patterns on the bike's current set of treads. Since we started with body analogies, let's just keep going with that. So the tire wear on a motorcycle is akin to a fingerprint. It's an identifying feature that serves up cold, hard evidence when you need it. Uneven tire wear is a red flag. It's a sure sign that you're looking at a bike that's probably been ridden hard or abused. It could also mean a motorcycle that needs suspension adjustment or has some bent forks at the very worst. Check the tread for signs of super aggressive lean angles or for squared off round parts if you're looking at a bike that was ridden super aggressively or shows signs of burnouts, etc. You need to know about it. One thing that I like to look at, especially for sport bikes, is looking at the front tire for super aggressive signs of lean. If a motorcycle's been leaned all the way over on the front, you have those little crusty tire marks at the front, that likely means that that bike was ridden extremely hard and at the limit. Now, just because a bike was ridden extremely aggressively doesn't mean that it's not a solid buy, but it does mean you should pay special attention to the overall mechanics of the bike and ask a lot of questions regarding the frequency of maintenance, etc. Up next is to crank her up. Just like you would start a car, you need to start and listen to any motorcycle you're looking to purchase. Pay special attention to any clicking sounds, gurgling, and the overall engine sounds. Now, bikes sound different when cold cranked than they do when they're warm, so let it run for a few minutes to get a better idea what the bike sounds like. Once it's warm, and all of the irregularities should level out, so if you hear something wonky, be sure to ask about it. You can run into a case where you hear certain ticking or sounds coming from the motorcycle that you believe to be something more serious, but it simply could just be the bike running. If you're able to, try to find some sound clips of the bike you're looking at buying on YouTube to get a feel for what a healthy version of that bike sounds like. If a bike is difficult to get started, have someone with a code reader check it out. There are lots of different reasons that a bike would be hard to crank, some much more expensive than others. So find out whether you're looking at fuel issues, spark plugs, battery replacements, etc. before you commit to a purchase. At worst, you could be looking at compression problems, and if that's the case, you might as well save your time and money and keep trolling those sale ads. Now, our final item, test those forks. New forks and fork seal replacements can turn into one of the most expensive and time-consuming repair jobs out there. Unless you have very specialized equipment, then this is one repair you'll end up needing a shop for. And not only will it keep you off your bike for a week or so, it's also going to eat up all of your hard-earned cheddar. The parts are expensive on this one, but what's really going to get you is the shop bill. Replacing the forks or the fork seals on a bike is incredibly labor-intensive, especially since the entire front end of your bike has to be taken apart. And this is easily going to slide into a $1,500 to $2,000 repair. Easily. So check the forks. Give them a visual check and make sure they're properly aligned and straight. On your ride around with the bike, you'll be able to get a feel for this because it'll feel like the alignment is off in your car. Check the suspension and steering. If you're on a flat area, be sure to put some weight on the handlebars. Push down hard enough that you can engage the front suspension. If there's a leaky fork seal present, you should be able to see fluid seeping out, especially if the bike is warm. The warmer it gets, the easier the fluids will push through the seals. And even though it's just the seals, it's going to cost you about the same to fix them as it would to replace the entire system. Shop labor prices really add up for this one, and it's a pretty big safety concern. So while it's good to check for cosmetic stuff, be sure to pay special attention to this one. All right, boys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for tuning in. What do you think? What are some other items you should look at when you're shopping for a used motorcycle? Do you think I missed anything? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I'd be remiss not to mention our beginner bike giveaway. Your Yammie has an amazing FZ07 up for grabs with a full system. You're going to want to check that out. Link in the description below. Trust me on that. And be sure to hit up Ridge Wallets. They've been a long-time supporter of the channel and have been super awesome to work with. They make the coolest minimal wallets that you can get with RFID blocking technology, literally bulletproof metal, and put simply, it's the last wallet you're ever going to need. Hit the link below, use code Yammie at checkout, and enjoy 10% off from me to you. I'll catch you guys next time. See you later. Fact. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the most powerful men in Europe. After a military victory, he had a rabbit hunt organized in celebration. Thousands of rabbits were brought in to be set loose, but instead of hopping away when they were released from their cages, they swarmed and started attacking the partygoers, including Napoleon, who ended up treed in his carriage. How the mighty have fallen. Goodbye.